you know his voice, of course, and it's as famous as he is. King Mustafa, is it, in The Lion King?
Mufasa.
Mufasa. I got 30% right on that, didn't I? And as an actor and a concerned man, you spent half an hour here last night, couldn't sleep a wink.
Didn't even take my clothes off. I just came back in the same clothes.
Yeah. Because you went to say one actor's name and you said another, and you're trying to decide if neither of them ever speaks to you again, if they're both flattered. I was so... To see James Earl Jones do that makes me feel so much better.
But you know,
I said Greta garbage once, and I tried to convince myself it was a slip of the tongue. And I meant Marlene Dietrich, so it was just a triple. It was awful. Oh boy, would I like to have an audience full of you in a nightclub. But last night, you know, it was so moving. You were talking about this childhood, and you are writing a book. I was going to suggest you have written a book, have you?
One, and it went off the bestseller list the minute it got on. So that means that it was never on the bestseller list.
But do you know how many books get within 300 of the bestseller list?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
It's like I've always wanted to know if so-and-so won the Oscar, how close did the next guy come?
That's the only thing that would be interesting.
Yeah.
How many times has someone won by one vote?
Yeah.
And if that person had been sick, someone else would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the bestseller list sells how many copies? They never tell you. Could be 10.
Yeah,
It's the best if the next one sold 9. Well, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We left you having moved to Michigan, having grown up in Mississippi, having been reprimanded, not grown up, I mean started to grow in Mississippi.
Born and bred.
Born in the cotton.
Born in the Mississippi and bred in Michigan.
Right,
yeah.
And with an enchanting grandmother, a beautiful other grandmother, and as a kid you held on to the back seat of the car in the mattress and said, I'm not changing grandparents, I'm staying with this set.
Yeah.
And we found you up in Michigan. And all those things are yet to come that we know you for. And we were talking about stammering. Do you have ever, what the great Jonathan Miller, talking about his stammer once, said that a certain letter would be his bugaboo for that day, and one day it would be M, and one day it would be B, and so forth? Did you ever have that?
I sat with Annie Glenn, the Mrs. John Glenn,
Yeah.
and who was a stutterer. And you might have seen the character portrayed in The Right Stuff. She's wonderful, and she's very active. She's an activist in terms of getting institutions started to help stutterers and other impaired problems. And she said when she had trouble with the F word until she met John.
She had trouble with the...
the F letter until she met John. And I didn't want to go into what happened to change it.
Where did it most... So,
But
I wonder if anyone's ever called the Fox network the F network, to be extremely polite. Never mind, sorry.
But I didn't mean the F word. I did it again, the F letter.
The F word.
I had trouble with the M letter. And
as in mama?
Mama, yeah. That's an obvious one. But...
It's also merde, and you told how you ate chicken droppings as a child, and everyone thought it was hilarious. He'll still do it on New Year's Eve.
Yes.
Why don't we just leap up to date a bit? Was it George C. Scott that Stanley Kubrick came to see?
Yeah.
Speaking
of movies, I want to say just one comment about plays before we go to George C. Scott's story in the movie, the first movie for me. You couldn't prove it by me. You could prove Dr. Strangelove by me. You could prove any number of media events that some version of me was there. But the stage stuff, it's like it's out of my head. I'm sure it's out of yours. I mean, Great White Hope. I don't know who that guy was. I'm not sure if I even liked that guy. Who was so-called starring in $1,000 a week on Broadway in The Great White Hope. He not that he was a creation. He was me at a stage, but so defined. Physically, I don't like being that skinny. I hate people that skinny. You're the exception.
I'm wiry and muscular.
You're wiry and muscular, yeah. I don't like people who are bald-headed. Although I have two wonderful brothers-in-law who are.
It's so fun to see somebody being politically incorrect about the bald.
Step forward, two backwards, right?
And people are offended by that. I mean, they'd be horrified if I said two bald guys put their heads together and made an ass of themselves. They'd be people would write in, I guarantee you, so we have to be careful these days. So you hate the skinny, you hate the bald, who else?
No, I'm just saying that I'm not even sure if that is a guy I did not want to stay.
You were both those things in that play.
Yul Brynner and Telly Savalas, maintained the bald head thing. I didn't want to be him. He was most unattractive to women. There was no stage door. James would line up in the backstage. People were scared of me.
You mean really?
Well, I mean,
you scared me. I can remember my having. I think they call it galvanic skin response at least 10 times during that play. Yeah, I'm not sure I would have wanted to come back and meet you because that when you see a totally believable performance like that, you think that's got to be the guy in some way, or he couldn't act like that.
Yeah. And I guess we actors should be proud that we can make those creations with the aid of a director and especially a great written character. But the point I'm trying to make is that all that stuff is in some version is of some version in somebody's mind, and that's all. Because it
doesn't seem like the you that today makes films and does. You're saying that what you were in that play doesn't seem to belong to you now?
Yeah, in a way, but also the play, it's gone.
Oh.
It evaporated. The curtain came down and it evaporated.
Thinnest air.
Unlike this thing that might sit on my shelf someday, and my son might look at it.
What's got to be frustrating, though, is that you did that play, and then they made a film of it, and you said that just the film lacked what the play had.
Yeah, but even so, I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we did that, and I'm glad we did Pazuzu, the remake of Exorcist. I'm glad we did Conan the Barbarian. I'm glad we did all the movies I've ever made, because they're going to be there. They're going to be there to tell on me if I don't make peace with them. You can't erase them. We did promise them that we would talk about Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah,
Kubrick was, he had just done Paths of Glory, I think, or one of his other great works.
Yeah.
And so he was in New York looking at actors to play generals. So he wanted to see George C. Scott. Although he knew he wanted George, he wanted to see him work out in Shakespeare in the Park.
Merchant of Venice?
Shylock, Merchant of Venice. So he came to see it. He also, I was playing Prince of Morocco. So this is not verbatim, but he said, I'll take the black one too. And I will not accuse Kubrick of saying that, but that's essentially what the thought was.
One white and one black to go.
Well, no, he wanted George C. Scott, and he wanted a B-52 crew of every ethnic. The ethnic crew. You're a Jew, an Irishman, a Canadian even, and a black guy, and an American Indian. He said, I'll take the black one too.
And you got to be the black one?
That's how I got to be the black one.
You'll never know the pain of being called the W word, will you?
White?
Whitey.
It's painful to hear it.
I was called Whitey once, the only time in my life.
Yeah. See, black people tend to do that and not thinking it's just as offensive as being called,
I was so flabbergasted. A guy says, "Watch where you're going, Whitey." I had made a bad turn. And I said, "I need your advice, Blackie." That was fair, wasn't it?
Of course it was.
Okay. But we've probably offended people of both races now. The people in the profession are being offended these days. They've got their pens and papers already. And then the guy laughed, and that completely disconcerted me because he was shocked, I think. And he went, but I said, I didn't ask to be born this color. Yeah. And then he laughed again. I'd love to find this guy. He was on the corner of 96th and Lexington.
Guy to know. Yeah, I'd like to know him also.
Wonder who he was. So Kubrick ordered one black and one white to go and got you into Dr. Strangelove. But you say he isn't that sort of person to really say it that literally. You were
Kubrick
careful.
was obsessed with the subject of power. I think probably in his personal life too.
Power.
Obsessed with it. because all of his great movies are about that, about power, the abuse of power, especially about the use of power, about his paths of glory. Just
Tell us more about in his personal life.
no, I don't know about his personal life. The Kubrick I know, he chews gum, very sort of
Chews
offhand.
gum?
Yeah, chews gum on the set, very offhand.
I met Ingmar Bergman, and he had a cap pistol. He thought it was
Really?
more funny. Isn't this great? And this is Ingmar Bergman. I must have the wrong Bergman. But
John
it's
Milius
startling.
has firecrackers. He throws off all the time.
Kubrick chews gum. Well, a lot of young directors are going to start
yeah.
chewing gum, hearing you say that. Steep down gulfs of liquid fire, is it?
Oh, that's wonderful.
That line, what is that, 6 words from Othello?
Yeah.
If you'd only written those 6 words, you could feel you had done your part. What speech does that come in? Where is that? Near the end of the play? Steep down gulfs. It is Othello, isn't it? And not
It's after she's dead.
not
yeah.
Dagwood.
Yeah, no, it's after she's dead.
Yeah.
Because he's whipping himself now. He's saying, "What a fool I was," He's just killed as the
Steep
moment.
down gulfs of liquid fire.
That's what he wishes on his head. He wished they
Yeah.
would.
Did you find it as curious as I did when O.J., you've heard of him, the famous trial, when he wrote what I take to be a confessional and suicide note from the very beginning, there were no two ways about it. I mean, if your wife's been slaughtered by a stranger, do you say, "Remember me as I was"? Wouldn't you talk about her a little? He said, "Remember me as I was, not this confused
I
figure,"
never
and
thought of
so
that,
on.
Dick.
Remember that? Was that
Yeah.
among the things you would not say if your wife was murdered by someone else? Is "remember me as I was"? To me, the whole case is right there. But anyway, he said, maybe I loved her too much. Did that ring a bell with someone who's played Othello how many times?
Who loved not wisely but too well. Yeah. But remember
And then
me
strangled
as
a
I
white
am.
woman.
Remember me as I am. Yeah, that was.
Is that in there too?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, that just gave me goose pimples.
Just the verb is different.
He
I
must have
am.
had to study it in school and probably unconsciously.
But I think O.J. must have read it too.
Must have. That's 2 Othello quotes. And then, of course, there's "These little hands will ne'er be clean" from another one, but we don't want to get too Shakespearean here.
Maybe Judge Ito ought to get onto that one. Huh?
Could your son read Penrod in this age of political correctness and enjoy it?
He likes buckwheat.
You like buckwheat?
He calls it buttwheat.
Buttwheat.
And totally politically incorrect when he howls with laughter about buttwheat. Now, my son he has no concern about politics at all, especially the correct kind.
Yeah. You haven't banned Huckleberry Finn from his reading.
No.
Can you imagine that
My
snooty
son
school
is
in
of all
Connecticut?
3 races, so there's not much I can ban.
There's no way to find the borders in you. But you said somewhere once, "I am going to stop right here, the chain of no fathers in my heritage." Maybe you said
That's
that.
easy. That's easy. I mean, it's quite easy to be a father, to be a cousin father. I think the hard thing is to be the abandoning father, to be the absentee father. That's very hard on the psyche. I don't.
Especially since you...
Whatever they're escaping, they've also run into.
They pay the price.
Oh yeah.
When you finally met your real dad, I mean your father, who'd taken one look at you as an infant and said, "I'm hitting the road," was it awkward? Was it? How'd you find him?
Awkward
Did you
because
do the phone book?
I was now bigger than someone you lift up like this.
You could pick Dad up.
I could pick Dad up. I just gotten out of my not the army, but my ROTC, Fort Benning, Georgia. I'd been down there and all pumped up and we hugged each other, and it was just odd because
You came to New York to find him.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to do the storybook version, yeah.
He was known, though, wasn't
there
he?
were foot tracks in the sand. Yeah, he was known. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I came to find him. I
say-
came to meet him because he had offered me a trip to New York when I was 14, and I was forbidden to come.
Did a
So
door open and there he was behind it, and you said, "I'm your son"?
No, I got off a train in Far Rockaway, and he was there in his bathing suit, strapping. Handsome,
We knew you were going to.
very handsome man.
Yeah.
And he walked along the tracks in his bare feet, and we hugged, and there, the passing trains. Yeah.
It's a nice scene for the movie of your
but,
life.
But yeah, with Charles Barkley playing me. We didn't know what to do with these, and we made the mistake of trying to mess with the identities. He had his identity, I had mine, and to be father-son, you got to have some sort of a blend. And we tried to mess with that alchemy, and it was a big mistake. It still is. I mean, when he and I try to be father-son, it's a big mistake because it's alchemistry that has to have started back in the mortar and pestle, and it didn't. So
And you had no past to draw
No,
on.
there's
with him,
no-
so
no.
you couldn't really, yeah. And it was felt false to try to be father and
yeah,
son.
it was blood doesn't mean anything
Yeah,
of itself, except DNA.
right. Which takes us right back to that inevitable subject. Did we send a big enough car for you today up in wherever you live that we won't reveal?
I could have brought the horse and the chickens and the pigs in that.
And the Knicks.
And the Knicks, right? Long-legged. Yeah, I could have. Yeah.
They have this car that a gangster would find in poor taste. It's so long and luxurious. It's almost embarrassing. And what if the revolution broke out when you're sitting in a 20-foot long limo? I guess they thought you wanted
Salvatore is a good driver, so I think you'd be fairly safe with him.
They thought you might have wanted to lie down in various places in it. I saw that. You made an interesting observation about the car. In profile, it looks like the male member. And I think
Correct.
the new Ford penis with all the, I can see this would be a good parody commercial idea.
Fully extended, yeah.
James, before, is there anybody who doesn't know that you are a voice that everybody knows in one sense? Do you ever just for fun in the back of an elevator talk as Darth Vader?
No, I've only done it once. I was driving across country with the CB radio, and I used Darth Vader as my handle. Freaked a lot of people out, When it got to the truck stop, it was kind of there was a buzz about it, So I decided not to do that anymore.
Are there people who don't have enough ear to know that you are Darth Vader? I mean, you're the voice of...
Oh, sure. I didn't know that Charlton was doing this. This is CNBC until I was told, because it was a very particular choice he made. And not that he's trying to disguise his voice or in more than I do, but they're just choices you make.
He kind of acts it. It's interesting.
Yeah. And no, I don't play with it. I'm lucky that it comes out enough to talk to you right now. I have no presumptions or no arrogance about my voice. One would think that I might even be in love with my voice. I'm not, because it would be the most unfaithful lover I've ever had, because it fails me often.
How?
Because I'm a stutterer. Because not only a stutterer, being a stutterer for that long in my developing years, I can't have an extemporaneous conversation. That is, I cannot be an MC, for instance. It's impossible for me. I can't string ideas and words together that well.
Some of the very best people are stutterers, and I haven't heard you stutter.
Oh, that's because you accept it. It's sort of
Well, maybe I'm erasing it mentally because I like you and I don't want
Marlon Brando made the American speech stutterable. He made the halt and all that very fashionable,
acceptable.
Yeah.
Now, this gets into a delicate subject, and I haven't forgotten the story I was going to tell. I hope. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, one of the roles you've always wanted to play that presumably isn't open to you is the fabulous part of Big Daddy, which the late Burl Ives, recently late, played. Yeah. Now we get into that whole question of that nonsense that happened when Miss Saigon came here. And a bunch of misguided people didn't want a white man playing an Asian. Why didn't an Asian get to play it?
They used to say, whatever door is the rustiest or squeaks the most gets the oil. It's whatever people who are in the most pain gets the protest, and that, as simple as that. And sometimes the protest is totally irrelevant.
Well, what's art got to do with democracy? No. It's an the only aristocracy you can defend is the one of talent.
If you want to
and the best person gets the part.
Right.
Period.
But if you want to deal with pain, unemployment pain, look at the Asian community in terms of jobs on Broadway, off-Broadway, movies, TV. Look, if you hear blacks complaining.
Well, yeah. I feel, because and what do they got to look for? I mean, the Mikado doesn't even employ real Asians because it was written to be played by English. Yeah. But but the idea that I think I said in my nasty letter to the Times, did Burton get to do Hamlet because there were no Danes out of work? It just doesn't apply to art. The director can have anyone he wants.
But if you played The late Diana Sands once said that she probably had as much a grip on Chekhov's ladies as Kim Stanley did, you know. And true, culturally,
Sure.
she understood them the same way that Kim did.
Yeah.
Just didn't look quite Russian.
Are you saying that if you played a white man like Big Daddy, that after a few lines, people would just be overcome by the acting and forget about the fact?
I would hope so, but I wouldn't trust it. I've also wanted to play Ernest Hemingway.
Yeah.
I think there you owe the audience the look, and I get the best makeup artist I get fine. You know.
What do you think of Olivier's Othello? I just
It's
saw
wonderful.
a bit of it the other night.
It's wonderful.
Why did all the little pissant British critics leap all over him for that?
Because he was daring, but I think I think what they missed was they should have busted Frank Finlay for his Iago. You know, it was a piece of crap, really. You know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, total.
Is that a
total,
negative assessment?
Please
on your
don't believe me. You know.
Yeah.
Which was Chris Plummer's choice too. Please don't believe me because this is really scary. Iago is the scariest character in any play Shakespeare ever wrote. He is Hamlet gone the other way around, and actors are afraid of him. They don't want to play the tragedy of Iago. They rather play the farce.
They play a flippy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to get off on that.
Yeah. Frank Finley's backstage now. He's coming up, right?
And then Bob Hoskins turned in a bigger piece of crap with Jonathan Miller directing.
As what?
The TV version of Othello.
Hoskins was a lousy...
Was Iago, yeah.
Holy mackerel.
I mean,
But you know, the greatest actors, Ralph Richardson had a total disaster in Macbeth, and he said, I never saw the dagger once. I'm going to tell you this quickly. Jackie Gleason's father abandoned him as a kid. He spent almost his whole life looking for him. I asked a comedy writer once, who's the worst schmuck you ever worked with? He said, Jackie Gleason, one famous comedy writer. One day, a bunch of writers were sitting around outside Gleason's office. I got to get the story in. And he kept them waiting and waiting and waiting for hours. And one of them said, finally, to hell with it, I'm leaving. And the lady said, what shall I tell Mr. Gleason? And he said, tell him his dad dropped by. All his life, he had looked for his father. Isn't that a cruelly wicked thing to say? Now, a comedy writer who can come up with that is certainly worth his money and shouldn't be lost to the staff. Another star had very bad scars from smallpox, and somebody said to him, Bob, what's par for your right cheek? It took me a moment to get it. Well, James Earl Jones, we certainly haven't covered your life entirely, but you certainly
I wouldn't want to do that yet.
No, because it isn't entirely over. Will you say hello to your son, Flynn, who I hear you've allowed to grow up into a large person now, from the way I remember him?
Yeah, he's all. Hi, Flynn.
Ask him if he remembers the funny guy who knew him when he was a kid.
Flynn remembers Dick Cavett, of course. Yeah.
You went right in there. You better tell him.
Yeah. Hi, Flynn. This is Dick. Remember Dick?
No? James, thank you. There's no way to thank you enough.